and sinful thoughts. It seemed to me that the women sought more eagerly to kiss my hands than those of my companions, which surely was not right, since I am not more holy than they. Besides, I am younger, and less experienced and tried in the fear and commandments of the Lord. When I observed this error of the women, and saw how the maidens kept their eyes upon me, I became frightened, and wondered if I could resist, should temptation accost me. And often I thought, with fear and trembling, that vows and prayer and penance alone do not make one a saint. One must be so pure in heart that temptation is unknown. Ah me! At night we always lodged in some monastery, invariably receiving a pleasant welcome. Plenty of food and drink was set before us, and as we sat at table, the monks would crowd about, asking for news of the great world, of which it was our blessed privilege to see and learn so much. When our destination was learned, we were usually pitied for being doomed to live in the mountain wilderness. We were told of ice fields, snow-crowned mountains and tremendous rocks, roaring torrents, caves and gloomy forests, also of a lake so mysterious and terrible that there was none like it in the world. God be with us. On the 5th day of our journey, while but a short distance beyond the city of Salzburg, we saw a strange and ominous sight. On the horizon, directly in our front, lay a bank of mighty clouds, with many grey points and patches of darker hue, and above, between them and the blue sky, a second firmament of perfect white. This spectacle greatly puzzled and alarmed us. The clouds had no movement. We watched them for hours and could see no change. Later in the afternoon, when the sun was sinking into the west, they became ablaze with light. They glowed and gleamed in a wonderful manner, and looked at times as if they were on fire. No one can imagine our surprise when we discovered that what we had mistaken for clouds was simply earth and rocks. These, then, were the mountains of which we had heard so much, and the white firmament was nothing else than the snowy summit of the range, which the Lutherans say their faith can remove. I greatly doubt it. When we stood at the opening of the pass leading into the mountains, we were overcome with dejection. It looked like the mouth of hell. Behind us lay the beautiful country through which we had come, and which now we were compelled to leave forever. Before us frowned the mountains with their inhospitable gorges and haunted forests, forbidding to the sight and full of peril to the body and soul. Strengthening our hearts with prayer and whispering anathemas against evil spirits, we entered the narrow pass in the name of God and pressed forward, prepared to suffer whatever might befall. As we proceeded cautiously on our way, giant trees barred our progress, and dense foliage almost shut out the light of day, the darkness being deep and chill. The sound of our footfalls and of our voices when we dared to speak was returned to us from the great rocks bordering the pass with such distinctness and so many repetitions, yet withal so changed that we could hardly believe we were not accompanied by troops of invisible beings who mocked us and made sport of our fears. Great birds of prey, startled from their nests in the tree-tops and the sides of the cliff, perched upon high pinnacles of rock, and eyed us malignly as we passed. Vultures and ravens croaked above us in hoarse and savage tones that made our blood run cold. Nor could our prayers and hymns give us peace. They only called forth other fowl, and by their own echoes multiplied the dreadful noises that beset us. It surprised us to observe that huge trees had been plucked out of the earth by the roots and hurled down the sides of the hills, and we shuddered to think by what powerful hands this had been done. At times we passed along the edge of high precipices, and the dark chasms that yawned below were a terrible sight. A storm arose, and we were half blinded by the fires of heaven, and stunned by thunder 1,000 times louder than we had ever heard. Our fears were at last worked up to so great a degree that we expected every minute to see some devil from hell leap from behind a rock in our front.